Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Okay, feel free to share any impressions, the meditation, give any feedback before we move on to the next part of the evening. Don't be shy now. Or you can make some comments in the chat box.
Philip, hi. Bruno has a question on the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if he still wants to ask something. If he does, Bruno, go ahead.
I can barely hear you, Natalia. What was the question? I can't hear anything.
In the chat, Bruno put a question, said that he has a question.
I'm looking at the chat. I cannot see any question there. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Was that Bruno who wanted to have a question?
Yes.
Bruno?
Are you listening? Are you guys listening me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So my question was about the 49 ashrams for fulfilling the ashram of the Christ. So I know from the blue books that there are 63 masters related to deal with the humanity, and that for the 7 main ashrams, they are distributed by 9 masters, 7 exoteric and 2 esoteric. My question is, how do these 9 masters, which relate to each of the 7 main ashrams, they distribute after for the 49 ashrams? Any light on that, Philip, please? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm not sure about the 9 masters number, but essentially we have.
It's on the human and solar initiation.
Yeah. Yes, I do recall that.
Okay. Sorry.
But basically, we have 7 times 7 ray ashrams. In other words, 7 subrays of each ray, which make up the 49 ashrams, 7 times 7. So there is a master or a 4th degree initiate at the heart of all those ashrams, and only half of them are manifested right now. The rest are in the process of manifestation, will probably fully manifest during the Aquarian cycle. So all the personnel of the ashrams and the master are responsible for a specific kind of service work, whether that's in politics, sciences, arts, business, you name it, any field of human activity. They have a particular part of the plan to manifest. And all of them in total really create a city of ashrams, if you like, which constitutes the Christ's greater ashram. That's my best sort of simple response to that question, Bruno. We could talk about it all night, as we could with any of the Ageless Wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for your words. Thank you, Philip.
Rebecca's written here, thank you for the dedication to Michael Robbins, where they're basically holding a silent vigil for Michael, Tuya, and Heidi in that link that I sent you. Any other comments or feedback?
Philip, could you please Could you please send that link in email as well?
Sure. It's on Facebook, by the way. It's
Oh,
all
okay.
over the place, so it won't be hard to find. But yeah, I
Okay.
can do that.
Thank you. Also, and Bruno's question about the ashrams, when I think of the ashrams, I affiliate that with the sacred planets.
Right.
As points of energy. So if you will consider the solar logos, you know, as the center point of the Christ ashram.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, all the septenaries, the 7 sacred planets, the 7 centers, and so forth, are all connected to one another. That's the basic sort of structure of the Ageless Wisdom, to link all those septenaries together. Yes. So the second ray ashram would obviously have Jupiter very closely associated with it, being the ruler of the second ray. Any other questions?
Yes, and then we also have the galactic logoic centers affiliated with those as well on the higher, but going through Sirius as the Ashna center of the galactic logos. So I tried to think of the galactic logos, the solar logos, and also looking at the great bear in relationship to the small bear, going to humanity. So the energy is being synthesized through all of those centers of activity. So when you think of the 7 sevens, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
People. Sorry to interrupt, Philip. I relate what Mitchell is telling because I think sometime somewhere in time you posted on Facebook, I suppose, some images about on your website about the distribution of the 7 ray energy from the higher centers, galactical centers, to the Earth, all the way through the signs and so on. Yeah.
I think for our discussion tonight, Bruno and Michelle, the discussion of the highest, the more galactic centers is a bit too abstract for everyone, for the whole audience. But if you do have that information, it's certainly worth visualizing. And the most simple one that I can recommend is Sirius as being the highest self of this solar system as a whole. And for the path back to Sirius will be the one that most of Earth humanity take once they're liberated. I think that's one of the most simple visualizations we can use. And Sirius, of course, is present at about 7 of the major zodiacal festivals. Kim has said here, I'm curious that the London Centre spreads to the British Empire, as I also understand the global elite implications for the British Empire. Yes, well, like all bodies and entities, they can become corrupted and abused and misused. Even though the British Empire has ceased to be in terms of greater autonomy of those countries, the subjective relations still remain. And they are still very strong. And I do touch upon this in recent newsletters. Amelia says, my impression of the meditation is that the heart was activated right away, although then I kept being drawn to Darjeeling very strongly. I kept moving through all the centers. British Empire, Natalia says we can perhaps use the word Commonwealth. Yes, that would be a less, a more politically correct word these days, with all the connotations, of course, that the colonial British Empire or colonialism has. All right, thanks for the link there, Kim. So I'm going to move on to the next part of discussion. After that brief, I just wanted mainly to get feedback on your impressions in the meditation. If there was anyone who wants to just share that specifically in terms of energies that they experienced during the meditation. That was the main feedback I was looking for. Anyway, it's not compulsory to give, so you can always put your feedback in the chat box or email us even. All suggestions and feedback is always welcome, of course. All right, so Aquarius the water bearer. I am not sure how many of you have got through my latest newsletter. It's a bit of a book. And I just felt it necessary to really reiterate some of the major world problems that we're going through. I know I've stated many of them before, but I tried to create a more up-to-date version of that. But of course, in each newsletter for each zodiac sign, I can't say everything. I've stated them before in other newsletters. So one of the things I didn't mention in this newsletter was about the water bearer. Well, I have, but not completely. The water bearer, the symbol of the human being who carries an urn of water upon their shoulders. One of the few human signs, Aquarius. We have Gemini, the twins, and we have Virgo, the virgin, but the rest of them are animals. And so the waters in the urn of the water bearer can be seen as the waters of love, wisdom, because the second ray of love, wisdom, is ruled by Jupiter, which happens to be the esoteric ruler of Aquarius. So, but those waters can also be seen as the electrical plasma of the universe, which is basically the etheric that connects everything to everything else. And the distribution, the free distribution and sharing of those waters and those right connections and relationships between all those beings or entities that are participating in that. And Aquarius will really open that sharing theme up, particularly in terms of sharing human resources, and where there is going to be far more cooperation instead of competition. It's such an easy solution for human problems, which we still haven't hardly started to work at yet. The other aspect of Aquarius is the labor of Hercules. I don't know whether any of you have read the book, The Labors of Hercules, but by Alice Bailey. But of course, Hercules has a task in each of the 12 labors, which are the 12 signs. And the Aquarian labor is the cleansing of the Augean stables, which is a metaphor for the generations of accumulated filth, particularly over the last age of Pisces that we've just gone through. And Hercules diverts a river to flush out these accumulations of filth, and in many ways, that's what we're doing right now. We're cleansing and purging and purifying the built-up filth of the Piscean age, and we have to do that properly before the Aquarian age can begin. And one of the main areas of that that pollution, if you want to call it that, is of course the astral body of the planet, of which everyone participates and contributes to in some degree or other, and of course which is the major area that most aspirants and disciples between the first and second degree initiation are working on at purifying and controlling. So the waters in the urn of water that the water bearer carries can be seen as the emotional waters, water being a symbol of the astral body. 2. But of course, we have these various expressions of Aquarius. We have Uranus, the planet of science, ruling Aquarius exoterically, and we have the fifth ray of science as the only ray that pours through this sign. So it's particularly technologically oriented, and hence my mention of Klaus Schwab, the head of the WEF, and his Jupiter in Aquarius. Even though it's the esoteric ruler of Aquarius, for him it's mainly tapping into the Uranian rulership of the signs in terms of his keenness on science and technology. Whereas I draw the comparison in the newsletter, Thich Nhat Hanh, the recently departed Zen master, Vietnamese master, well, he was really a global figure. His Jupiter in Aquarius was entirely along the esoteric rulership of Jupiter in its expression. Although he did study science and sciences during his life, he was basically a lord of compassion with that Jupiter in Aquarius. And also I mentioned Lady Diana, who had Jupiter in Aquarius, who said that she wanted to be a queen of hearts for humanity. So, any questions or comments on those last few minutes? Or from the newsletter in general, if you've read the newsletter yet, or Aquarius.
My only comment, Philip, is bravo. I really enjoyed the newsletter, and I think you did a really good job of synthesizing a very deep dig on the information, and affiliating that the way you do with astrology just amazes me. And wow, my hat's off to you. After having that very personally involved in my own personal life, as far as those centers of activity that you covered, it really just touched me very deeply. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Karen's just written here in the chat box. Thanks for the insightful meditation. The activation of the world centers was distinctly different at each one. The triangles, for the first time for me, became 3D and not just flat linked triangles. Points of light were so bright it was almost blinding. It is clear for me the triangles anchor tremendous light for our planet. I was curious about under which center Australia and Africa fall. Africa felt linked to Geneva and Australia to Tokyo as a Southeast Asia Pacific nation. Yeah, well, I have an essay in my first volume of Destiny of the Nations and Races, where I discuss Australia and Africa probably being the base chakra and the sacral chakra respectively, that will take over 1 million years to awaken yet. But we're talking about different chakras here. We talked about the 5 planetary centers, London, New York, Geneva, etc. But these centers are different ones, where we have essentially Shambhala as the head center, hierarchy as the heart center, and so forth. That's a different allocation of a different chakra combination, if you like. That's a global one. But the 5 country centres is for the root races per se. So that's something that you'll be able to distinguish once you learn a bit more about it. But thanks for the feedback, Karen, because this is a new meditation I've devised, and I think it's so important now for meditating groups to work with countries, to work with nations, to send to direct energy as groups to various trouble spots on the planet. I do this in another group, another glamour meditation group that I'm part of every Sunday. And other groups are using nations far more regularly too now. And this is a lot of this work is based upon a quote of DK's in the Blue Books, where he says that World War II could have been avoided if virtually a handful of meditators had worked in the mental realm, could have avoided World War II. This is incredible. I think he's alluding to maybe 20, 30, 40 people working in a concerted effort and concentration in cooperation with one another. It's an amazing statement. Just think of all the suffering that could have been avoided if that had happened. But the disciples of the time, who were given hints about this by the Master, didn't really pick it up. They're a bit slow on the pickup with that, and so it never happened. Not that it was their fault or anything, but it's a very good example of how we now, in this day and age, 100 years later, have the capacity to try and walk our talk, to make the ageless wisdom teachings practical and apply these formulas to directing energy through the various centers. We know that different rays come through the different centers, which I've listed in those diagrams on my website. For instance, the first ray of willpower, which is Shambhala energy, is the soul ray of Geneva. But it has a second ray personality that tones that really powerful impact of the first ray down quite a bit. So, yeah. All right. Any other comments there?
I just want to add about what you were saying, Philip, that nowadays is very important for us to meditate and work in group triangles, because the world is in pain, as we all know, and like you said, if we as a group of world servers can prevent the materialization of the wars and so on, I can relate to the problem now in Europe about Russia and Ukraine and so on. And if the group of world servers can meditate and activate and be linked with the centers like USA, UK, and Russia, and activate all those things, it's very important for us and build this net of light and support to humanity. Thank you.
All right. So we are on the cusp of the ages, of course. This 500-year cusp that started a few hundred years ago, probably around the 1781 mark, which was the discovery of Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. And DK tells us that there's a 500-year cuspal period between the 2,160-year cycles. So we're still going to be in that for a while. The sun does not precess into Aquarius astronomically, we are told, to 2117, which is just under a century away. It's not that far away. And so, of course, we know that the externalization of the hierarchy is going to happen sometime between now and then. I think at the latest, probably around 2080, but maybe much sooner. It all depends on how humanity is responding to this current planetary crisis, which is getting deeper, of course, and is starting to unravel in many ways. In this next couple of centuries, the Masters of Wisdom will externalize again, and the mystery schools will be reinstated. The schools for training for initiation, which is discussed in some of the blue books, of course, and where, in fact, some of those groups in those mystery schools will be conducting some of the earlier initiations, like the first degree and the second degree, which the Christ himself has presided over until now. And so this represents an extraordinary acceleration in consciousness this next 2,000 years, where humanity will be taking far more responsibility for itself and its spiritual evolution, and be merging much more closely and cooperating much more closely with the hierarchy. At the moment, there is a minimum cooperation with the hierarchy, even amongst spiritual students and so forth, for various reasons. So the school that the Aquarian Wisdom Center retreat wants to start is a seed of the future schools, and that is behind the impetus behind this entire project that we've started here in Portugal, where we will our goal is to purchase property to be set up as an international retreat and conference center with local contributors, as in local Portugal, local as in Europe, and global as in everywhere, anywhere around the world. And most of you here tonight are representative of most other countries. So I urge you to go to our website, which has been beautifully upgraded now, much more user-friendly on the phone too, by the way, and read up on the explanations and the vision of this group. And the goal that we have, of course, cannot be realized unless we receive donations. We're looking at the maximum around about 1.5 million euros to raise between now and 2025. So far, we've had very modest donations, and we have no expectations from one point of view. And by the way, thanks everyone so far for all your generous donations. They're very much appreciated. But we have decided that the best way to develop this center is to purchase a property that is fully fledged as far as acreage goes and established buildings. Hence the need to raise this sum of money, which sounds like a very large sum, and it is, but it can be actually covered by just a few donations from some people. So we will keep on moving ahead steadily, building steadily our community online and otherwise through these meetings, various workshops that I have planned, like weekend workshops or one-day seminars on esoteric astrology or the hidden history of humanity, and work along steadily towards that goal with no attachment to the outcome. The key factor is really the building of a magnetic center of cooperative individuals who want to contribute to the work of the community and the spirit, of course, of the Ageless Wisdom teachings. So, are we still all here? Most of us are. Any other comments as we take another pause?
Philip, if you don't mind sending an email out with the link to the website and the information. So I lost the email from before.
Michelle, you'll find it on my Facebook page.
Okay.
Under the, just scroll down a bit, you'll find the big picture of the Aquarius, advertising the Aquarius webinar that we're in tonight, and that has a link to the website as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And also, most of you should be on the mailing list, so you should have received our emails that we send out. If you haven't, look in your trash folder. You might have missed it. It might have gone straight to trash. Yeah, and I've got a few comments here. Well, Inez has just posted the link in the comments. I'm just reading these other ones. Kim was talking about presenting on a webinar yesterday for the World Council for Health. And sent a link. Thanks, Kim. Julia has posted the link, Michelle and others. Just the second last post. Aquarian Wisdom Centre Portugal.org. And yeah, go in there and have a look around, read up, and of course make a donation if you can. Someone's saying the replay page seems to be down. Oh, okay, that was the World Council of Health. All right. So we still have plenty of time if we want to keep going, or we can wind the meeting up. So again, people who have not asked anything yet, feel free to ask a question or make a comment. Claudia is asking, how is time related to space? Time equals frequency. I have no idea. Although I do talk about space and time with regard to the equinoxes and the solstices. You can read about that in an article on my website. I've mentioned it several times in my newsletters. But I couldn't really do justice to your question. Sorry, Claudia. So, right, so we have Aquarius as a sign of group cooperation and community, as I've said before, but what we're seeing at the moment is the lower expression of Aquarius, as I have said in the latest newsletter. The selfish misuse of powerful groups coming together, particularly in business and in science, and the kind of collaboration between those two fields. The commercialization of medicine, the exploitation of human health. This is the lower expression of Aquarius in terms of the prostitution of science, essentially. It will get better. There is a great post I sent yesterday, I think, about the harnessing of energy from the stars that I posted on Facebook. Extraordinary research being done to harness the light from the stars. It's quite an amazing thing to consider. That is a true Aquarian technology and is related because of its, basically being given freely to humanity. Eventually, it will be given freely. It will be sold first, of course. But it is related to fusion technology, nuclear fusion, as opposed to nuclear fission, which is being used at the moment. Nuclear fusion is the ultimate in clean energy, and they say that we're probably 50 years at the most away from achieving that, which will be, if that is true, will be one of the greatest achievements at the beginning of the Aquarian Age that will support the entire cycle. Of course, Nikola Tesla was onto free energy, but was way before his time, and he was suppressed. But he wanted to build those broadcast towers, broadcasting free energy to the entire planet. And it could be done. He proved it could be done, but it was shut down, and that plan was thwarted. But it will come around again in the Aquarian Age. It's not exactly the same as fusion energy, but it's the same kind of direction of Aquarian technologies.
I believe also, Philip, that there's a lot of information out there. I'm not familiar with the people involved that have studied the pyramids and find that that's basically how the pyramids were structured, was they harnessed the solar energy of the stars from different points of the planet.
Yes, absolutely. Energy receivers and transmitters. Pyra means fire, and it's receiving the fire of the sun, the stars, and concentrating it and transmitting it. There's some excellent work around in the last 10 years with people going deeper into discovering that, and so that would be another technology, I think, that will emerge during the Aquarian Age, or that we will rediscover. We had a lot of these technologies back in the times of Atlantis that were given to humanity by the Masters of Wisdom, by the guides of the race, but they were abused and misused, and the hierarchy had to withdraw those technologies from humanity, just as you would take a box of matches from a child playing with matches. But now, and I've mentioned this before in other newsletters, humanity will rediscover all those old inventions or old technologies that were around in Atlantis, but they won't be given to them by the Masters of Wisdom. We'll be discovering them through our own mental evolution, the expanded consciousness that we've achieved since Atlantis in this fifth root race and going into the sixth root race. But and also, of course, the age of Aquarius on the lesser cycle and on the greater 25,000 years cycle that I also discussed in the latest newsletter. So please go to the newsletter and read up on those things if you haven't looked at it already, because it really gives a preview of what's to come in the Aquarian cycle. Bruno is saying here, the first decade of Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, so it will be hard for humanity. Yes, it will be challenging. Saturn is the lord of karma and the maker of laws, spiritual laws that we have to live by. And Saturn can be a hard taskmaster because humanity is somewhat recalcitrant and finds it difficult to live up to universal laws. So, but it functions very well in the first decade of Aquarius and offers opportunity. That's the key factor. And also to mention that Saturn rules the throat center of humanity, that humanity embody, giving that karmic free will to determine our own destiny. So this first decade of Aquarius for the next 720 years is going to be very important in that respect. Someone's just asking, how long is the meeting going for? Usually an hour and a half. We're going to wind up in the next few minutes, I think, just to let you know in case anyone else is wondering about that. So we've got time for maybe one more question or comment from anyone who hasn't asked a comment or asked a question or made a comment yet. Please feel free to share. Yes, usually by 8:30 we wind up the meeting. I see a few familiar names out there. Hi to everyone. All right then, we'll call it a night. Thanks very much for coming, everyone. Do investigate the website and stay tuned for the next meeting or seminars that we have planned as part of the project for the Aquarian Wisdom Center. So I will close the meeting and say ciao for now.